From this point on, everything that I'm doing on this screen or my voice is being recorded. So I will be at the end of this session, in the next 24 to 48 hours, I will convert this into a video, put it on YouTube, and you'll be able to listen to it as many times as you want to, or never again if you don't want to listen to it at all. Okay, this course primarily or entirely is online. So if I go to Blackboard and I have a Blackboard open in the background, here is our Blackboard page. This course is entirely on this page, or will be entirely on this page. If I go over to the left-hand side over here, I see announcements, and you'll see that usually that's where you're going to open up with announcements. And for instance, the most recent announcement is the update on the room. From now on Monday nights at 8 o'clock, I will be in this room. So you can just come to this room and you know that I'll eventually get here. It's not 717 anymore. That's not available to us, but we're going to be in room 503, okay, on Monday nights. There are some other information here, a welcome to the course, some details on what software we're going to be using, what books we're going to be using, what we're going to be doing during the semester, but I'm going to go over that as we go through this evening now as well. Okay, so I just want you to know that you keep an eye on those announcements. Occasionally I may have to make announcements about something new in the course or some required work or something like that. If you click on instructors, you'll have my email address. I don't have an office. I'm an adjunct, so I don't have an office here at School of Public Health, but I can certainly meet with you either online, like using GoToMeeting or Skype or something like that if you have issues and so on and so forth, or you can come up here at 8 o'clock, you know, and join us here where I can help you out, answer your questions and so on and so forth. So this is supplemental to the course. It has nothing to do with this. Is just me and you guys getting together on a Monday night because football's over. There's no more Monday night football. So this is what we're doing from now on, right? So anytime you have a problem or anything like that, you can come up here at 8 o'clock and I'll be here and I hopefully will be able to help you out with it. In the absence of somebody, a lot of times people will come up here and I'll say, well, what's your problem? I don't know what my problem is. I just don't understand this stuff. So what I will do is I will try and present the material in a new light, another way, so that you have what's in the course material that's on Blackboard, and you also have what I'm doing here at night, maybe even a little simplified, maybe with a different emphasis or something like that, but hopefully help you figure this stuff out if you're having. But the more feedback you give me about, gee, this is the part that I don't understand, or there's this homework assignment, I just don't understand problem 6 and 7. The more specific you are, the more I can direct it to what you really need. Now, what I'll do is that I don't mind talking. I'm a real talker. So you can tell that already, right? I haven't stopped yet. So if you don't have anything specific to have an issue with, I will try and go over the things that I know. I've been doing this for 22 years. So I will go over, I know pretty much where people have issues and stuff like that. So in the absence of you giving me something specific, I'll try and reinforce the things that I think that are problematic, that have been issues for people in the past. So you don't have to feel that, gee, I'm not going to show up because he's going to ask me a question about what I need to know, and so you don't have to worry about that. If you just want to sit there like a lump, it's no problem. I could talk forever, right? So and I know the things that usually come up as a problem. Okay, and you guys online too. If you have a question or something like that, type it into the chat box. If you have an area that you would like me to cover in this material, if you have a question about the course material, about how the course is set up, you can type it into that chat box. So already you know how to get to this session. You know what room we're in, and these guys online know how to connect to me online because they're seeing the same thing that you're seeing on the screen behind us. I turned off the webcam here, so you probably cannot see anybody's webcam. Am I right about that? You can type into the chat box and let me know that I'm right about that all the webcams are off, right? So all you're seeing is my screen and the work that I'm doing on my screen. So I'm instructed, that's my email address. That's the way to get in touch with me. Also, there's another way to get in touch with me that's even better in some cases. But if you do send me an email, okay, I didn't put it in here. I should have put it in here. I put it in everywhere else. Always put in the number for the course, BIOS610, in the subject line. Because what my email program does is I have it set up so whenever it sees that anywhere in the subject line, BIOS610, it grabs that email and puts it into a folder with a big flag on it, and the flag goes up, and I can't miss your email. If you don't put that in the subject line, a lot of you guys, you have, don't use, maybe you don't use your School of Public Health email, and your email address is reddragon at 73 at Gmail, and I'm going to look at that, and I'm not going to know who the hell sending me an email, and it's going to go, or my email program's going to grab it and put it in my spam. But if you put it in BIOS610 in the subject line, anywhere in the subject line, it'll grab it, and you'll know it'll get to me. So that's one way to get to me. The other way to get to me is to go into the discussions board. And in the discussions board right now, we only have 3 forums set up that I set up. You can add a forum yourself if you want to. I've set them up because I know that they're going to come up. And the 3 forums that are here right now are, number one, let's introduce ourselves. I'm going to ask, as an assignment I'm going to put up in the next couple of days, I'm going to ask you to put something into that. Let's introduce ourselves. You don't have to put anything. You can even make it up as far as I'm concerned. The reason for the exercise is I want you to prove to me that you know how to find the discussions board and to use it, because the discussions board's vital to us in this course. That's the only way we can communicate, because really this is kind of extra, right? We can't depend on this. And everything that we need needs to go through that Blackboard, through an online source, right? So right now, 4 people have already done this, right? They've added their comments. You can click in there and read them and so on, and you can click and answer that, as well. But that's going to be one of the assignments, is go ahead and do that. You'll notice that there's 2 other formats. One is general questions and answers about the course. So if you say, well, I don't understand, what's the deal with these assignments? Why don't I see one right now? Well, the course just started. I haven't put any up yet. And what about, what about the exam? What's the exam going to be like? And so you can put any kind of general questions that you have in there. When we get close to exam time, or when I give you an assignment, I'll put another forum on there. It says questions about assignment 1 and 2. So if you have questions about those 2 assignments, you can put them into that mailbox instead. Also, the other thing I have up here right now is SPSS installation and other software questions. Because when we get through tonight, we're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to start looking to install software on your computer, or get hold of software, or find a way to access this and use it. And there's going to be a number of ways that you can't do that. Okay, good. Thank you on the web confirming about the webcam. So this is the discussions board is going to be important to us. That's going to be one of our first assignments, is to post into there that let's introduce ourselves, but learn how to use this and use it. And you want to know, dirty little secret, at the end of the semester, most of you people in the class, what's your name? I'm sorry? Astu? Astu, I know what Astu looks like. You know what I know about the rest of you people that are online now? Nothing. I have no idea what you look like, how old you are, how tall you are. You're a mystery to me. However, if you're posting in the discussions board, and for instance, you post a question there, and somebody answers you, and you have an exchange there, or another student posts a question, and you get to it before I do, and you answer that question, right? You have an exchange going on. That's what we call in the iCloud world class participation. So at the end of the year, 10% of your grade is class participation. How am I going to gauge that? Well, I'm going to gauge that based. Remember, I can't gauge it on this. I'm not even taking attendance. After this is gone, I'm not going to know who was here, who wasn't. This is for your benefit, to help you keep up with the course, right? So I'm not going to gauge it on this, but I will gauge it on, getting assignments in and so on, but also on the discussion boards. Are you using them? Are you communicating? Are you helping other students? And you don't have to be helping other students. Even if you post questions, that's valuable too, because those questions are probably the same thing 5 other students had in their heads that didn't bother to put down there. So I learned from those questions. Right, so I need you to use that discussion board to communicate with me. So those are your 2 main ways of communicating with me: is the discussion board and the email. I'll see if I can't get some sort of voicemail thing or something set up here. That's sometimes a problem, as far as an adjunct is concerned. About 22 years, I told you I was doing this for 22 years. 22 years ago, I gave out my cell phone number. I'll never do that again. You can imagine, right? At final time, what happens then, right? So that's not practical. I would love to do it, but I can't afford two cell phones, one for class and one for, like my real life. And, so I can't do that, but I might be able to set up some sort of voicemail thing. So you can actually, a lot of people feel more comfortable speaking than they do writing, right? So I'll figure something out on that if I can. Okay, so discussion board. So now the syllabus, you can go in here, you can click on the syllabus, you can open the syllabus up, and it'll tell you week by week the topics that we will be covering. I haven't put in the due dates for the assignments yet. I hate doing that. The reason why I hate doing that is because as we progress through the semester, some topics, one class, one group of people will just buzz right through, and another time they need a bit more time on it. So I hate nailing us down to a specific date. I will put dates in there, but there'll be approximate due dates for the ones in the future. When I post an assignment, I'll give you a specific due date. But for the assignments in March and April and May, I'll put approximate dates on them when I'm going to be posting them, so you have an idea when you need to be prepared for them. But remember, they might move a little bit based on how well we progress through the semester. Now, under course materials, I have information on the textbook that we're going to be using. There's a link here to an organization called openintro.org. And that's an open source textbook collaborative. And what they do is they're a bunch of professional teachers of statistics that have put together a textbook, a free online textbook. You can download that as a PDF file. You can buy a printed copy from Amazon or from various other sources. In fact, I think if you click on there, it'll have links to where you can purchase it as a printed version, black and white or whatever, or color if you really want that. And it's really pretty, printing's really pretty reasonable if you want to do that. You don't need to do that. You could just use the PDF version of it as well. Okay, so, and we're going to be using it to some degree. Well, the course is going to be a little bit different than what's on that textbook, but it always is. It's one of those courses where we never wind up doing exactly what's in the textbook. Now, the next thing that you're going to need is you are going to need some software you're going to need basically some sort of text editing program like Word, like Microsoft Word, and along with that, a spreadsheet program like Microsoft Excel. So if you have access to Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel, you already have that part of it done with. If you don't own it and you want to buy it, there's a student discount that you can get through the bookstore, I believe, right? So you can get a relatively inexpensive version of it. Nowadays, most computers, when you buy them, they come with some version of software like that. So we're going to be using Excel and Word. That usually most people have pretty good access to that. We're also going to be using a specific piece of software. They call this vertical software. Vertical software is kind of software that has a specific use. Like Excel is general software. You can use that for finance. You can use that for real estate. You can use that for math. You can use it for science, for engineering, right? A lot of different purposes, keeping a budget even, right? But so that's pretty general. SPSS is a program that's specifically only to do statistical calculations. It's much more sophisticated and capable than Excel is, and much easier to do those statistical calculations using that program. When you open it up, it looks a lot like Excel, but it works a bit differently. And it's really pretty easy to use. Once you get a look at it and a feel for it, it really is pretty easy to use. Now, the program costs $1,000. Okay, you're not going to spend $1,000 on it. You have a couple of choices here. They have a student version on it called the Grad Pack. And there's a link here where you can go to an IBM site where they will give you links to vendors that sell it. And some of them might be $35, but some might be $37. Some you might have accounts with already, that you might want to use, right? So you can use any of those. But in general, what you're going to find is that there's two versions of it. There's the Grad Pack base version, BASE base version, and there's the Grad Pack standard version. The base version is about $35. The standard version is about $50 for a 6-month license. If you want a license, if you think I'm taking EPI next semester and I want to be able to use it for a year, you might go for the 12-month, where it's not quite double. You know, it's like instead of 35, it might be 65. Instead of 50, it might be 80 or something like that. You can get a 12-month license instead. The difference between the two, you can get away with if money's really tight, you can get away with the base version, right? The difference is the standard version has one type of analysis that we're going to do literally the last week of the semester called logistic regression. You're not going to be tested on it. It's going to be mostly a demo. It's pretty advanced kind of analysis. It's going to be mostly a demo that I'm going to be doing. But if you want to be able to do it on your own as well, the standard version has logistic regression in it. The base version does not. You don't need it, but it's recommended. For the extra $15, I think it's worth having so that you can practice, you can try that, you can practice it, and so on. So the only other thing I need to tell you about that, make sure you download the right version. In other words, if you got a Mac, download the Mac version. If you got a PC, download the PC version, right? And they'll send you, usually you'll download the program and they'll email you either a program or a number for the and you run an installation program and it asks you for that file or that number or something like that at some point, so that it'll run, so that you can install SPSS and have it working on your computer. You probably got 2 weeks maybe to get this done. I'll give you an assignment that won't be due for a couple of weeks, but a lot of you will say to yourself, well, gee, maybe I don't want to spend the money. I can use the one that's on the computers at school. I can use it there. But the nice thing, well, number one, you're not going to be around school that much because it's an online course. That's number one. And number two, it's like having a bicycle. If your friend owns a bicycle, right, it might take a lot longer for you to learn how to use a bicycle than if you own a bicycle, right? So the only way you're going to learn this is actually using it. It's not a hard program at all. But it really is worth learning. It's a useful tool for your future, and it's really worth learning how to use this stuff in this field, right? So I really encourage you to go ahead and buy it. Go to cheap. Go to as low as $35 if the money is an issue. Okay. Now the next thing that we need to discuss is this thing called City Program, the City Program course in human subjects research. It's really an ethics in human research. Okay, so what is this course? This is a course that you can register for by going to a site called literally City Program. You see how it's spelled there, .org. And you go through a registration process. It asks you what institution you're associated with. You're going to tell it CUNY, City University of New York, right? And it's going to ask you what course you want to take. You want to take the basic course in human subjects research, HSR. Okay, they may ask you, do you want it like a biomedical, or do you want social and behavioral? You can choose whichever one you're probably going to be most comfortable with. In EPI, you might be more prone to selecting social and behavioral. If you are working at a hospital or something like that, and you think that's the direction your career is going to go on, you can choose the other one, but choose the one that's appropriate. But we want the course in human subjects research. When you're done, you're going to get a certificate. It looks something like this. Whoops, I blew that up too much. Can't see it. So it's going to have, it's going to have completion date, expiration date, so on and so forth. Here you can see HSR, Human Subjects Research for Social Behavioral, graduate students, postgraduate students, and basic course, right? And what that's going to consist of, you're going to wind up doing a bunch of readings, right? And each one of these readings is going to be basically the equivalent of a page or two of material. You're going to get a short quiz after that, like maybe 3 or 4 or 5 questions. Overall, you have to have an 80% correct rate on the questions that you answer, but you can go back and re-answer them anytime you want. So in other words, don't worry about it if you only got 3 out of 5 instead of 4 out of 5. You can go back and retake that again, overall, before you get done. So you got to go through several of these modules. There might be like maybe about 8 or 10 modules or something like that you have to go through one after the other to get to the point where it'll print out and give you a certificate. When you get the certificate, download it as a PDF file, upload it to Blackboard. I'll give you a space in Blackboard under assignments where you're going to be able to upload this. Why are you doing this? Because you're going to be doing over the course of your career at school, or perhaps even at your workplace or after you graduate, you're likely to be involved in situations that involve sensitive information involving human subjects, or ethics in terms of informing subjects, subjecting them to hazards, and so on and so forth. And you need to be knowledgeable about these things. In fact, before you can really get approved for working on studies that involve human subjects, you're probably going to have to demonstrate that you have this. If you've done it already for some other reason, if it's less than a year old, just give me that certificate. If it's more than a year old, you don't have to take the course over again. Just take the refresher course. There's a refresher course you can take instead and upload that instead. Most people, it takes 4 to 6 hours to get it done. It's not that bad. It's really interesting reading. There's a bunch of studies they tell you about a bunch of studies that are real horror stories that about what's gone wrong in human research and so on and so forth, and how to avoid those kinds of problems. Really pretty interesting history of this issue involved in a lot of this stuff, and you're going to find it pretty entertaining, I think. But you may not find it as entertaining. You may find it entertaining now, but then at the end of the semester, when you got 8 courses that you got to get done and papers and everything else, this 6 hours spent on this is not something you're going to want to do. So try and get this out of the way early, rather than wait till the end of the semester. I always say that. Always going to be people that wait until the last week to get it done, right? And it's not like it's unpleasant stuff. Okay, so now you don't have to use SPSS. You don't have to own it necessarily, but you really should. I can't emphasize enough. You really should. If you're if you are pretty advanced in the use of software and statistical software, there are other programs. For instance, a program called R, which is an open source statistical program, which is free and you can download it. But it's a little bit difficult to use. It's command based rather than menu based. So it's a little bit more challenging to use, almost like a programming language, really. So, but if you're pretty sophisticated and you want to use R instead, you can go ahead and do that. But you're going to have to support that. You support yourself on using that. Okay, but for most of us, we're going to be sticking with SPSS. But if you want, keep that in mind, because that is kind of like where real statisticians are headed nowadays. Okay, and then some other resources that are on here as well. This is no longer, that's hidden from student. Sometimes you'll see something on my Blackboard you don't see on yours because it's hidden. Okay, so assignments are going to wind up here. Discussion boards here. Your grades are going to be in my grades category over here. And the way my grades category is going to, when you click on that, it's going to take you an area where you're going to see lists of the assignments and what your grade on that assignment was after you've completed it. Now, my policy on the assignments is different than what's in the syllabus. Okay, I really feel that this course is much easier if you keep up from week to week. In other words, very easy with online courses to get lost for a month and then come back to it and be 4 weeks behind. But it's really, in this particular course, we build up from week 1 to week 2, week 3. Each week kind of builds on the one before. So it's really hard to like skip a couple of weeks and then really just fall back into it. So I really try and encourage people to try and keep up as much as possible. And in terms of doing that, what I do with the homework is a little unusual. I assign the homework a due date. For instance, I might put assignment 1 up, meaning the discussions board, maybe some quick little assignment based on what is in week 1 or something like that, something simple for week 1. I may put that up in, say, on Tuesday or Wednesday, let's say Wednesday, and I may give you 1 week to do that. So I'll make the due date the following Wednesday. If you submit an attempt on that homework by the due date, by the following Wednesday, just any attempt, you could get 10%, you could get 100%, 80%, as long as you make at least one submission before the due date. You have the right to go back anytime in the semester and do that homework again for a higher grade, as many times as you want. Right? I have some students went back on homework 7 times. So I got 50 on it this time. Oh no, I finally figured that one out and I got 60 and 70 and until I got 100% on that. Your homework is 40% of the grade, right? So if you can just, kind of stick to that, can you get that first attempt done in time? There's no reason why you shouldn't get 100% on all the homeworks, right? Because you just keep trying them till you get them, right? And so that means you got 40% of your course you already got 100% on. So that means that if you have difficulty in an exam, we're going to have 2 exams, and either the third, your choice of either a third exam or a modest little project, right? Something where you demonstrate using one of the statistical analysis we have, right? That we've learned, right? So you have 2 exams. So if you stumble on one of the exams, which it's 15% of the grade each or something like that, if you stumble on one of those exams, well, that money you got in the bank with those homeworks is going to help you recover from that quite a bit, right? So it's really worth doing that, and it helps me because then I think you guys are going to have a much easier time understanding the material because you're really keeping up with it then. Okay, and again, you don't have to even do well on the homework. Just give it an attempt. Just, because what I want you to avoid doing is saying, I'm busy this week. I'll skip it for the next 2 weeks and I'll come back to it. I want you to at least give the exam, the assignment, an attempt so you can see what it is, see what the questions are, and so on and so forth, even if you don't do that well on them on the first try. Okay, so let me get this out. I'm going to close this up. Yeah, I can close that. I don't need that. And I'm just going to go quickly. Some of this is going to be repetitive, so I'm just going to go quickly through it here. And I'm going to say play. I'm not going to be able to see your comments. I don't see any new comments for the moment. But I'm going to go through here. Okay, and some of this. Okay, that's my contact information again. And again, there, put BIOS610 so that I don't miss your email. I should be able to reply within 24 to 48 hours, hopefully sooner than that. See some of my hobbies there. Okay, I've been an adjunct lecturer here for more than 22 years. I also do a little teaching at other locations. I just quit my day job about a year ago, which was in environmental analysis, environmental evaluations in industry, and in New York, a lot of it involved like commercial office buildings, residential buildings, and so on and so forth. So it involved a lot of, indoor air quality, mold, cooling towers, a big issue now with Legionnaire's disease and so on. So I'm involved in a lot of that kind of stuff. I've taught biostatistics, and I teach a lot of the environmental and occupational health science courses. I'm kind of like, whenever anybody is on sabbatical or is pregnant and is going to have a kid, I wind up teaching that course. So that's kind of how I wind up in some of these courses. So I've taught biostatistics regularly, though, for the last at least 12 or 14 years. But then occasionally I'm teaching the course on hazardous environments, noise and radiation, industrial ventilation, indoor air quality, and other environmental measurements, other courses like that. Okay, and that's the kind of stuff that I was doing during my day jobs: cooling towers, process water treatment, and water testing, safety training, all kinds of stuff like that. I'm a certified pesticide applicator, only because some of the chemicals that they use in those industries are considered pesticides. That anything that makes a kill claim or controls a microorganism nowadays by the federal government is considered a pesticide, technically. Okay, again, you have an idea here on the about how to get in touch with me. New class material is going to be posted every Monday. So every Monday, along with this, there'll be, so we have, right now you have week 1 with these videos and these other materials and stuff like that. I'll be taking a quick look at them. So every week there'll be a second weekly session, third weekly session, so on and so forth. So check Blackboard. I may post them early, like over the weekend, So if you have nothing to do over the weekend and you don't feel like waiting, you can just drop into Blackboard and see if I put something up by Sunday or something like that. Okay. By the way, the other thing is check Blackboard periodically for announcements. And also on Blackboard, you have a default email address. Most people, it defaults to your School of Public Health address. If you don't check that often, you're going to miss emails from me or announcements. For instance, whenever I post an announcement, I also broadcast it via emails to everybody in the course. You've probably seen that already, right? So, but if that's going to an email you don't check often, you're going to miss these announcements. So there's two things to do with that, two things you might consider doing. One is check the School of Public Health email, and the other is you can change your email to an email that you check frequently. So if you have Gmail, you can change your default email on Blackboard to your Gmail address instead. Okay, what's an online course? Well, we know about brick and mortar courses, right? Brick and mortar course, you sit in a classroom like this, like you and I, except this is supplemental. It's not really the course, right? But an online course is supposedly in what they call the cloud, right? In other words, it's online, it exists in some server at some different place. Most people are sitting down right now looking at their computers just like that. How many of your homes look like that? That neat, right? Nice. Look, there's a little thing in the bottom shelf there. We've got a little plant over there. Very nice. My house doesn't look like that. Doesn't look anything like that. But hopefully yours, that's what you look like, you guys online. That's exactly, if I were to look over your shoulder there, you turn on your webcams, that's exactly what I'd see now, right? So you would play the videos, you would go through the exercises and so on and so forth. As we go on, you'll see more and more, it'll be more and more interactive. Right now, not so much because we're just getting into this, but as we go on, it'll be a little bit more interactive. In-person attendance is never required, not for the tests, not for the project, not for the classes, and not for this. This is all voluntary, what we're doing right here. Okay, but we'll be having these sessions every week. Okay, and most of the sessions will be more actual statistics than tonight. Tonight we're getting acquainted and getting the rules, getting all the basics down. Okay, again, you're going to need Word and Excel. You're going to need SPSS, and you're going to need access to Blackboard. You need good time management skills. We don't want you to fall behind. That's the key to working on this course to make sure that you don't fall behind. Okay, demonstrate. There's exercise that recorded lectures. There's exercises. There's going to be assignments and so on and so forth. And then again, 2 online exams and either a project or a 3rd online exam. Okay, weekly sessions. Everything's going to be available through Blackboard. Okay, textbook we told you about. Okay, have you downloaded the textbook yet? Oh, okay. How about you guys online? How many of you guys have downloaded the textbook already? I'm going to move on from that. There's always kind of a lag with the online chat for some reason.
I just downloaded it. Yeah.
So it's a reasonable textbook, right? Oh, you got a printed version. Did you get the printed version through the bookstore or through Amazon or some other source? Through Amazon. Okay, did you get the color one or the black and white one? Okay, good. All right, good. I'm glad you saved the money. I don't think you need the color one. Okay, so at any rate, this is a picture. This is a page from the textbook. It looks like a regular textbook, but just because it's open source doesn't mean that it's not a real textbook. Okay, here's Excel. There are alternatives. If you really don't have any money, there are alternatives to Excel. You can email me for details about this, but there's an openoffice.org and neooffice.org. They have programs you can download that work almost exactly like Excel and Word that you can use instead of them if you don't have the money to buy it. This is what, of course, you guys are familiar with Excel. This is what SPSS looks like when it opens up and when it's got data in it and so on and so forth. I like the PDF also. The reason why I like the PDF is because PDF I can do a search on. I can do a quick search, like put a word in there and have it located for me. You know, so I kind of like the PDF. I get the combination of the PDF and the printed version are nice because you can actually write on the printed version or highlight things and so on. But you guys, you can do that with the PDF too. Right, but it's not so, yeah, you know, I'm an old, you guys can't tell, I haven't had, did I have my, I might have had the webcam on briefly, but you can't tell that, you know, I'm actually 19, I'm just barely, you know, I've been teaching for 22 years, I'm only 19 years old. So I, you know, but I'm an old geezer, so I'm used to using, you know, paper-based materials and stuff like that. Although for an old guy, I'm pretty sophisticated with this stuff. So again, cityprogram.org. You want to complete that as soon as you can. And yeah, this is I don't know how there is some information here about which selections to make and so on and so forth. I don't know how these windows change all the time on that website. It may not look exactly like this. The key is you want HSR, human subjects research, for graduate students and postdoctoral scholars, right? So I don't care if it's social and behavioral or if it's biomedical or medical, you know, that would depend on your area of interest. So you could choose either one. Okay, now we're online right now. Which grad pack do you recommend getting? Also, okay, I think probably I was talking about that before you managed to join us. The grad pack comes in two versions. It comes in base version and standard version. The standard version, the difference between the base version and standard version in terms of course is the base version is $35 for a 6-month license and about $65 for a 12-month license. You only need 6 months for us. If you got other reasons to have it next semester, you might want to get the 12-month version. The standard grad pack is about $50 and about $85 or $90 for the 12-month license. $50 for now. The $15 difference is primarily functionally for us. The difference is that the standard version will allow you to do something called logistic regression. That's a kind of an advanced topic that we're going to cover the last session this semester. Mostly it's going to be a demonstration kind of thing, right? I'm not going to be expecting you to solve problems with it or answer test questions with it or anything like that. But it may be handy for you to be able to do it also so you can get some practice with it and stuff like that. But if the $15 difference is a hardship, the base version is good enough. But I would recommend, if you can afford it, the standard version, right? Just so you can play around with logistic regression at the end of the semester. Okay, so just the other thing you should make sure you download the correct version for your computer, meaning make sure if you got a Mac, make sure you download the Mac version. Make sure if you got a PC, make sure you download the PC version. That is perennially a problem for 1 or 2 students gets the wrong version, right? So be careful on that. And otherwise, I don't think too much else can go wrong. You just follow the installation instructions carefully. They're going to give you a link to download the program, but then you'll also probably get an email with either a file or a link with a that's used for their installation program to verify that you own the program. So keep your eye open for whatever technique that they use to verify that. Okay, so what do we do next? Get familiar with Blackboard, download, read syllabus, download, get acquainted with the textbook, get started on City Program if you can, and make sure you got access to Excel and SPSS. By the way, on the short term, SPSS is on all of the computers at almost every CUNY facility. If you're at 68th Street, if you're at 119th Street, if you're at School of Public Health, any of the laptops here, they all have SPSS on it. Then when you borrow one, you'll be able to work with it. The libraries have them. There's also a version of something they call virtual desktop, where you can use a version of SPSS which exists on another computer, another server, where your screen and your keyboard are kind of using the version that's on that other computer. It's a little bit slow and cumbersome. And when you are opening and closing files, you got to be a little bit careful about where you save and open the files from, because you may be saving them to the server and not to your computer, so you lose the file or something like that. But for, you know, if you're really stuck, you can give that a try. If you go to the School of Public Health webpage, if you go into the technology area there, if you click on a link, there's a link in there to the virtual desktop version of different kinds of software. And you can click on that and it'll give you instructions on how to use it. At some point during the semester, maybe we'll go over it a little bit, but I mean, that's also in a pinch, you could use that as well. Okay, where am I now? Okay, weekly class materials posted on Mondays. I think I mentioned that. Announcements, make sure you check your mail. And okay, course rules, don't panic, keep up with the course, and no man left behind. I don't know who that old man is. I have no idea who that guy is. Okay, so let's take a look at this actual course material now. Okay, so I'm going to open up a file that's on Blackboard if you want to open it up later on. And this I'm gonna put that aside for now. I want to get this a little bit more specific stuff. Okay. Okay, and I think I'm kind of repeating a little bit what might be in some of the videos, but I think it might be worthwhile. Okay, so first of all, how many of you guys that are online, are you guys very familiar with Excel? How many of you guys would say that you're not very familiar with Excel? How many of you are not familiar with Excel? Let me put it that way. In other words, you don't use it regularly. How about you? Sometimes, okay. Well, I'm not getting the answer. So what I'm going to, okay, you know the basics, used it in the past. Not really, I do not use it regularly. Okay, good. Okay, a little bit. Okay, familiar, no expert. Okay, good. I have a window of where we are. So most people are at least somewhat familiar with it. Okay, so I am going to go over a little bit of it quickly, really quickly, really kind of super 1 minute, hopefully 1 minute. How come I don't see my, let's go to 200%. Okay, that's a little easier to see. Okay, so basically in Excel, I don't know if most people have got Excel on their computers and they open it up and they just started using it, right? So I don't know if you have, and most people have never had any formal training in Excel. So just to go over really the basics, there's 3 kinds of things that you can have in a box in Excel. These boxes are called cells, right? CELLS, right? Cells, and they're identified, of course, by the row and column number. So for instance, this cell is B3, right? And this cell is C5, right? So that's where we identify where that cell is located on the spreadsheet, okay? In those cells, in all of these cells that we have, you can have one of 3 things in them. There's only 3 things you can put into them. One is called the label, like for instance, a word. Label's a word, January, right? The second thing that you can have in there is a number, right? And that number could be a whole number. It could be a fractional number, right? Just a number, right? You can have a number in there. The third thing that you can have in there is a function. And that function is any of a number of things. Simplest thing is it could have an arithmetic function. I'm going to go back and I'm going to change this to a 98, right? And what could that function be? That function could be, for instance, that function, if I put an equal sign in there, it alerts SPSS to the fact that I'm going to put a function or an equation in there. Basically the same thing as saying an equation. So when I hit that equal, notice what happens at the top there. Notice how things change, right? And when I set an equal sign, right, now it gives me the opportunity now to tell SPSS what's going to be in this formula. What do I want in that box? So for instance, let's say I wanted to add those 2 numbers together. Well, I can tell it to put into that box 100 plus 98. 198 worked fine, right? Or I could say equals, and I could say, you know, instead of just putting those numbers in there and doing that operation, why don't I say, put in, what is that, C3 plus C4, and hit enter. Oops, what happened there? C3 plus C4. Oh, actually, what happened here? Oh, it was 110. Yeah, right. Okay, Excel had it right. I got it wrong. Right. So you could use you could use the designations of those cells. There's a certain amount of power in there by doing that now, because let's say I found out that this was the wrong number and this is really 210, right? If I change that number, it will update this cell, but not the other, right? So it really helps to identify it by cells instead if you think you may be making corrections and so on and so forth. So another way I could do this is that there's built-in functions in Excel. So instead of doing that, I could say equals. There's a function called sum. And there's many, many functions in Excel. This function called sum, if I put in sum and parentheses, notice it alerts me. Sum, parentheses, put in the numbers now. And I tell it that, oh, well, the numbers are C2 and let's see, C2 through a colon through C4. It will now give me that same total. So now let's say that I have other numbers here. Okay, I can say equals sum, parentheses, and now I can say put in C3 colon C, what is that, 7. You know, I had to do a lot of typing there, didn't I? Well, you know what I can do instead? I can say equals sum, parentheses, and I can, now once I get that parentheses in, notice it, when I put that parentheses in, it knew that that's the one function that I was interested in. Once I get to that point, I can go over here to the first number, click down without releasing, and it fills in the C3 for me. And then drag with my finger, and notice what it's doing. It's doing it for me. It's filling it in for me. So that it makes it a lot easier to identify the numbers that I'm working with, right? Okay, so for instance here, I could say equals, this equals, what is this? Equals, this is, I sold 10 of these at $11.20 each. So that's equal to this times this. There we go. Did that for me. Ah, now watch this. If I take a number here, 100, and I tell Excel, I'm going to highlight this and go down here and I tell Excel, file, fill down. It copies that number down. Well, you want to know something? I didn't even need to do that. I could actually just click on this and go over to the corner here and drag it, and it'll do the same thing. Okay, it'll copy it down for me. Now watch what happens when I do it here. Oh, it didn't copy that number. What did it copy instead? It copied the formula. So 20 times 20 is 400. 10 times 14 is 140. So if you look up here, it shows you what's in there. F5 times G5. And over here is F6 times G. It was intelligent enough to understand that that's really what you needed. And then down here, I could get the sum total. Okay. Oops. Oh, I left the equal sign out. That's why it's not working. Right? So that's basically how we use Excel. For the most part, if you can do this, you probably can do everything we'll need to do in Excel. The only difference is that we're going to get involved in functions in Excel. Okay, these functions, there it is, came up over there. These functions, there are many, many, many. There's 100 or a couple of hundred functions in Excel in all sorts of different that are used in all sorts of different situations. See, now they're listed all over here, but you can also break this down into the different kinds of functions. Like could be right now I think it's all. I'm gonna break it up. Yeah, here's statistical functions. There's going to be engineering functions, logical functions, text functions, database functions, mathematical functions, engineering functions, financial calculation functions, and so on and so forth. You have any number of different kinds of functions that are built into Excel, including these statistical functions that we may find useful as well. Okay, so I'm going to close this one up. I'm going to go to the next one. How are we doing on time? Well, basically it ends when we want to, but I just want, I don't want to go too late because of the lights go out at, 10 o'clock, they turn the lights off here, right? So we're not going to go that late. Okay, I just wanted to get a handle on how long we're going to be here. Okay, so guys at home, they're having a cocktail or something like that. They don't care. I'm not even sure they're still awake. Are they? Let's see. I wonder if they heard me say that. Okay, so there's a, I think in one of, yeah, they say they are. We'll have to take their word for it. Okay. So this budget demo basically gives an idea to the what if kind of capabilities of Excel. So for instance, I think I did this in the videos a little bit too. So let's say that these are your debits, your expenses, and the sum of all your debits is going to be $17.40 a month, and your income, including your salary, tutoring money, money you get from mom and pop, and so on and so forth. If they're still giving you money, they haven't cut you off yet, it's $1,400, and the balance is equal to, well, it's your total coming in minus your total going out, but you're in the red, literally $340 a month. So you can go back here and do kind of a what if. Well, what if I get a roommate, right? I cut my rent in half, right? Well, now it's still losing a little bit of money. Hey, look at this entertainment budget I have. I could save money there. Okay, well, there you go. Now we're saving $10 a month, right? So you might even do a little bit better somewhere else. But start biking maybe, knock $100 off there, right? So all of a sudden you put money in your 401k, right? So this is an example of using the what if quality in Excel, being able to experiment with numbers. And this is a minor example. If we were Boeing and we were designing the 777 MAX, right, which is having all these problems, and we said, oh no, we made a mistake 18,000 calculations ago, and it affected all of this. Well, if you use Excel, if you change that number, it will recalculate all those different calculations that were based on that original calculation. So it's an enormously useful tool that way. Okay, so I'm not gonna bother with that right now. I think these are pretty much the same thing that on the videos. And let's see. Okay, so now, yeah, I do want to talk about this. Okay, before we talk about that, I want to open a Word document if I can. I could use this. No, I don't want to use this. I'm gonna have to move this out of the way. You guys can't tell. The reason why I'm struggling sometimes to do this stuff, you can't tell, but I got these control panels for the lecture, for the GoToMeeting, all over my desk here. So it's hard for me to. That we introduced in the videos this week is the idea of the types of data that we're going to be working with. In other words, what are we going to be doing with information in this course? That's really what this course is about. This course is all about handling information, handling data, right? So how to summarize it, how to describe it, how to see if how to compare it to other data. Does this drug work better than a placebo? Does this training program for healthcare workers improve the outcomes for patients? How do we analyze all this? What kind of data do we need to collect? How do we analyze all this stuff? So I want to talk a little bit about data types. Okay, and I'm going to increase this sample size. Okay. And so I'm going to talk about data types. So as far as data types is concerned, let's talk about what kind of data that we might be working with. So for starters, right, one kind of data that we might be working with is numerical data, right? What might numerical data consist of? It might be blood pressure. right? Might be, let's see, might be hormone levels. Might be something simpler, might be height, might be weight, might be BMI, which is calculated from height and weight, right? So those are numbers, those are numerical data. Another way of describing numerical data is to call it scalar data. Okay, because the data is on a scale, like blood pressure is 0 to 500, right? Height is 0 to let's see, 6 times 12, no, say 10 times 12. Nobody's 10 feet tall. 0 to 100 inches or something like that. Weight is 0 to 500 pounds. BMI is 0 to now the functional range might be different, but they are really scales, right? So a numerical scalar data is one kind of data that we will be working with. Okay, now numerical data is not just simple scalar data. Numerical data also can be what we call discrete numerical data. Well, what is discrete numerical data? I think it's been spelled. What is discrete numerical data? I still misspelled it. There we go. What is discrete numerical data? Let me just back up a second. Numerical data is anything that's on a scale, like 0 to 200 for blood pressure, or height, or weight, BMI, anything that's like a scale like that. Hormone levels expressed as, I don't know, milligrams per deciliter of blood or something like that. So that's a lot of the data that we collect, right? In other words, we go out and do a survey, or when a patient comes into an examining room, what's the first thing that happens? You stick them on the scale, you take their temperature, you measure their height, their weight, you calculate their BMI, and so on and so forth. And you record all these numbers somewhere, right? So that's one kind of data that we might collect that might be of interest to us. The other data, or if you're a nutritionist, you might be interested in how many grams of fat a person eats, how many portions of ice cream they eat a week, how many sugary drinks, and so on and so forth. Well, that's a little bit different, isn't it? If I asked you how many portions of ice cream that you eat a week, right? Well, you're not going to say 97.34. You're probably going to say something like 5, right? If I ask you how many siblings you have, you're going to say, oh, I got 2. Right? You have a brother and sister, I got 2 siblings, right? That's called discrete numerical data. It's usually a simple count. In other words, data that involves, it's a number, just like these other numbers, but usually it's an integer, and it involves a simple count of the census.
Number.
What's that?
Like a whole number.
A whole number, exactly.
Yeah.
So the census, for instance, a lot of information that they calculate, family size, so on and so forth, is a discrete number. Okay, where someone's income might be more of a scalar number. Could be 1,000, could be $50,932.47 or something like that, right? And there's a little bit of play in between where you might look at a number. If I asked you how many times, how many people in your family are bald? I don't know. And you got a big family, you might say, oh, 32. That's a pretty big number. Is that numerical, or is it discrete? I mean, there's a little bit of a crossover there, right? But the real key here is that both of these are numerical kinds of data. Okay, so that really is. I'm going to put them together here. They're a little bit different, but I'm going to put them together there. What about the next kind of data? Okay, that other kind of data is called categorical. Sometimes they call it nominal, because nominal means name, basically, because it's names, right? It's categories are names. So for instance, what might be something like that? How about gender, right? Male or female, right? Male or female. I'm sticking with the simple version of gender. Okay, how about hair color? Right, hair color is not a number. Hair color is not. when I was a kid, I worked for an outfit called Corvettes, right? It was like a high school summer job, and it was my job to keep the cosmetics counters things stocked, right? And back in those days, they sold a hair coloring called Clairol. Is that still around? Clairol still around, right? And they used to have Auburn, Southern Auburn, or late night, or late night vanilla. They used to have these ridiculous names. I couldn't keep track of them, right? And what the hell they were talking about. Those colors all sound the same to me. So they had numbers though also. So I would sort them by the numbers. So even though that they were using a number, that number is also not really a number. It's a name. So a number can be a categorical variable as well. Can you think of a number that is used for identification, which is kind of like a name, but even though it's a number, it's not really a number? How about if you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and you want to renew your driver's license, you want to get a new driver's license, and nowadays you got to get these special driver's licenses, which are special ID licenses. What do they ask you to bring? They ask you to bring a birth certificate, social security number, right? They want to know your social security number. So social security number is a number, right? 999999999, right? That's a number. It's not really a number though. It's not a count. It doesn't mean it. It just identifies you. So a number can be a categorical also if it's used as a category. So that's another kind of data, categorical. How about a third kind of data? This third kind of data is kind of a mix. It's categorical, but the categories have values, have different values. So for instance, if I asked you how over the past year have the subways are the subways, what kind of condition are the subways in? Are they excellent? Are they good? Are they fair? Are they poor? Right? Well, let's see. If I ask you what kind of condition are the subways in, and the possible outcomes are excellent, good, fair, and poor. They're names, right? Excellent, good, fair, and poor. But unlike hair color, which was red, brown, blonde, etc., right? Unlike those, these have an implicit order. Excellent is better than good. Fair is better than poor. Fair is better than poor. Good is better than fair, and so on and so forth. They have an implicit order. So even though they're categories, they have a specific order. Those are called ordinal variables. Can you think of one that they use in the emergency room? You go in there and you have a terrible headache, and what do they ask you about? And they give you an aspirin. What might they ask you about your level of pain? Right. What does that say? Now there's a name for that scale, right? So we must have somebody medical here. That's pain scale, right? Oh, good, Marita. That's good. You guys are keeping up with me there. I'm glad to hear it. So what is that scale called? Anybody remember? It has a specific name. The person who invented the scale, I think. But you guys online, if you got Google, you can look it up. But yeah, that 1 through 10, that's a perfect example of an ordinal scale, because that number 4, for instance, if you say, oh, man, I came in here, it was a 7, right? Your 7 may be different than anybody else's 7. Now, if you ask me, if you took blood pressure, your blood pressure of 100 is the same as this person's blood pressure of 100. Those numbers are equivalent. But if you ask on that pain scale, well, what's your pain level? 7. Yours may be different than another person's. And not only that, it's even worse. In other words, if now all of a sudden you say, what is your pain? What's your level of pain now? Oh, it's 4, right? Well, then you got to say to yourself, what's the difference between 7 and 4? So even for you alone, the difference between 7 and 6 might be different than the difference between 4 and 3. There's no way to tell if they're the same or different. All you know is the order. right? So those are ordinal variables. So those are the three main kinds of variables that we're interested in. Numerical or scalar, categorical or nominal, same, I'm just using the words the same way, or ordinal variables. Those are the three main classes. We could break numerical down into scalar and discrete, right? Which just means integers, whole numbers, or counts, right? But a lot of times we're not that concerned about that, at least for not right now. Why is this important? This is important because the kind of ways that we organize the data, the kind of ways that we analyze the data, the kinds of statistical tests that we're going to be using in this semester is really dependent on what kind of data that we have. We use different kind of tests for numerical data than we use for categorical data, than we use for ordinal data, right? And we're going to be learning about all those different tests and how to apply them and where to apply them. So I want to cover tonight. I want to cover one more thing, and that is I want to cover just basic calculation for numerical data. And I think I have it. Oh, I got it downloaded, I think. Do I have it here? I thought I had it here. Okay. So now I have SPSS open here. And let me zoom in a little bit so it's a little bit bigger. You can read it easier. Here's SPSS is open on here. Okay, so here is data that we have. We took blood pressure of 10 different individuals, right? And one of the things I might mention now also is that when we look at an entire population, if I'm interested in the average blood pressure in that entire population, in order to know what the average blood pressure in that population is, I have to measure the blood pressure of everybody in that population. Let's say the population is the population of Brooklyn. How many people live in Brooklyn? You think 3 million, right? I got to measure 3 million people. Very expensive, very cumbersome thing to do, right? So if I want to know the mean blood pressure, I have to measure 3 million people, right? I'm going to call them, if I were to go ahead and do that, I'm going to call that mean, I'm going to symbolize that by using the Greek letter mu, right? That's the population mean for the people in Brooklyn. But you want to know something? There's a certain amount of variability in blood pressure. Like there are going to be people with very low blood pressure, some people with very high blood pressure, a certain amount of variability. There is a function, a statistical function that we call standard deviation that describes that variability. When we do it for a population, we use a Greek letter sigma. I can't draw it very easily here. It's like a little O with a little thing on the top. We call that sigma, right? In most cases in statistics, the reason why I have statistics is because normally we don't have the resources to measure everybody in a population. But what we have to do instead is we have to select a sample of people for that population. We want that sample to be representative. We don't want to skew that sample and only pick people that are that live in Brooklyn Heights and belong to a gym and they're all young, or whatever. We don't want to pick just them because that's not representing the entire population. So we want a good random sample of everybody in Brooklyn. And when we take a sample, in order to distinguish the mean, let's say our sample size is equal to 100 people. In order to distinguish between the mean of the sample and the mean of the population, we get a different name. We call it X bar. Now, in the future, you're going to see me when I have time to do it. The X will have a bar over the top of it. That means anytime you see that, that's the mean of the sample. Anytime you see mu, That's the mean of the population. Anytime I talk about Greek letters, it's population. Anytime I talk about standard deviation, I'll probably call that SD, right? Anytime you see with English words, like English letters, I'm talking about the sample, right? So it's different between population and sample. These are called parameters, Greek letters, and these are called statistics. Right? Our world is going to be the world of samples and statistics. Why do we really care what, in other words, if I did this and I found the average blood pressure was X bar is equal to 89. Do I really care what X bar is? What am I really interested in? I'm really interested in the population. Reason why I'm taking the sample, I don't have the resources to sample the entire population, but I'm not really, I don't really care that this sample is 89. What I'm really interested in, does that 89 really represent the mean for the population? How close to mu am I when I have that 89? That's what we're doing. That's our beginning, first few sessions, statistics is going to be trying to understand and predict how well we've estimated these parameters based on the calculations that we did in our sample. That's important. That's vitally important because we're never in our entire lives, almost always, never in our entire lives will we know what mu is for anything. The only way you're going to know is if you measure everybody. Everything else we know about anything is based on a sample, except I lied. There's one thing, there's one time when we know, because it's not based on a sample, it's an actual count. What year is this?
Yeah, we did an actual count.
Yeah. What year is this? What are we doing this year?
Oh, the census.
The census is an actual count.
Oh, okay.
Let me give you an example, and it's required to be an actual count. In the Constitution, it says there has to be an actual count. I'll give you an example. In certain areas of the country, we have people that in rural areas that are hard to get to because they're remote. In areas like New York or in Texas and towns on the border in Texas, you have people that are, and now it doesn't change the, let's count everybody. Not just, remember there was this big thing about it, whether they wanted the question about citizenship,
Yes.
because we count people that are not citizens, right? They count also. It's a population count, right? So to count them, of course, the concern is where they're going to use that information, right? And whether or not it's going to intimidate people, scare them from taking part, because we want that census to be accurate. Got to count everybody. So now let's say in the town in Texas, in the area of Texas, we know, because a lot of these people are legal, they don't speak English, they hide, they avoid the census, so they don't get counted. And we go down there, we take this town, which is just like 20 other towns. We take this town and we actually go in there and we corral everybody, we count everybody, and we find that we're undercounting the population in that town by 10% because of that, right? Well, you would say to yourself, well, you know, what's happening there is probably happening in all these other towns. So why don't we adjust those other towns, right? If you're thinking that, you're thinking like a statistician. But what does the Constitution say? Constitution say you can't do that. It's got to be an actual count, right? So if you want to adjust all those other towns, you better count all those other towns, right? You can't just make an adjustment based on a statistical correction. Right. So that's good things about it, bad things about it. So first thing I did was I lied to you already, right? That we never know what the mean is. We know what the mean family size in the United States is. How do we know that? We know the fertility rate in the United States. How do we know that? Because we know how many children per woman that there are in the United States. Because we're counting it every 10 years, right? So there are certain things, a few things, probably count them on two hands, right? Certain things where we know what mu is. For the rest of everything you're ever going to do in your entire life in health, we're never going to know. We're never going to know what the average blood pressure is. We're never going to know what the average BMI is. We're never going to know precisely what it is. We're always going to have statistics that'll help us make a good guess, but we'll never know for sure. So they have you can buy a T-shirt that says Statistics means never having to say you know for sure or something like that, right? So literally that's the situation that we're in with statistics. It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing also. So to go through this quickly, now I'm going to reopen this file. Yeah. Okay, when you go in here, okay, session 1, I'm going to put what we did tonight in section 0. When you go in here, there's going to be a lecture section, so reading, this is just a reading. There's going to be this course introduction, which is going to be Blackboard, the tools, kind of similar to what we just did. There's going to be a lecture session, which is going to be either me or another professor. Right? I sometimes I've taught this course with other people, what's by statistics, types of data. We talked about that, how to summarize data. That's in a lecture kind of format, right? PowerPoint. But I also, there's a lab version here where you can play these videos and go through some of the calculations that I started on tonight. Okay. I'm down to 1%. Well, I'm gonna be done right now. Okay, when you go through these things, there's several. This one's an introduction. This one is the basic statistics. It's going to go through an exercise of calculating how to calculate the mean and the standard deviation, and so on and so forth. There's a bunch of other stuff that's here as well. If you see extra material on here, don't worry about it. We'll be getting to that as time goes on. Okay, so go play through the videos. Sometimes people like to do the labs first.
How to do it through SPSS or
Both Excel and SPSS. And now Rome wasn't built in a day, right? We're just getting started now. So whatever we don't do here, we're going to do next week and the following week and the following
I
week.
think I remember a little bit of SPSS.
Okay. Okay. We're going to have all sorts of stuff on SPS, and we'll have all sorts of exercises on here also. Okay, guys, we're going to call it a night here. I will record that. I will get the recording of this and post it within the next 24 to 40 hours if it'll help you to look at it. This is really kind of general stuff. So I think as we move forward into next week, that we'll really get into the guts of this kind of stuff, right? So in the meantime, go through getting your materials together, getting software on your machines, and starting city program, and so on and so forth, so that you get a running start on this whole thing. So good night, guys. If you're still online and can still hear me. Okay, good. I hope you guys now are a little bit reassured that this is not going to be something that we're not interested in making this tough on you. I want you to understand it, learn about it, and not be frightened to death of this stuff. It's really a lot. I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this. Take care, guys. Good night.